The arrival of the aliens. On a clear night, the sky over Earth shimmered with stars. People went about their usual routines, unaware that something extraordinary was about to happen. Suddenly, bright lights streaked across the sky, leaving trails of fire. A loud roar echoed, shaking the ground. It was the arrival of the Drakthar, a fierce alien race known for their conquests across the galaxy. The massive ships descended from the sky, darkening the land below. They were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Each ship resembled a giant metal beast, with sharp edges and glowing red eyes that seemed to scan the earth. Panic swept across cities as people looked up in disbelief. In the heart of New York City, Sarah Thompson, a young scientist, stood frozen, staring at the sky. Sarah had always been fascinated by space. She spent her days studying stars and galaxies, dreaming of the unknown. But now, her dreams were turning into a nightmare. The world was in chaos. Sirens blared, and people ran in all directions. Some were screaming, while others took out their phones, trying to capture the moment. But Sarah knew this was not a moment to capture. It was a moment to act. "Stay calm. We need to gather information," Sarah shouted to her colleagues at the research center. They were in the basement of a tall building, where they had been monitoring unusual signals from space for weeks. But no one had expected an invasion. "I don't think they came here to play nice," said Mark, a fellow scientist, his voice trembling. "They're here to take over." Sarah nodded, feeling a mix of fear and determination. "We need to understand their technology. They must have a weakness. If we can find it, we can fight back." As the ships landed, the ground shook with their weight. A door on the nearest ship opened, revealing tall figures in metallic suits. The Drakthar stepped out, their skin a deep green with scales that shimmered in the light. They had large, intimidating eyes and sharp claws that gleamed menacingly. "We are the Drakthar," their leader boomed, his voice deep and powerful. "We have come to claim this planet for our own. You are weak, and your time is over." The crowd below gasped, and fear spread like wildfire. The Drakthar laughed, a sound that echoed through the streets. They raised their weapons, and a bright beam shot into the air, signaling their intent to conquer. In the research center, Sarah and her team watched in horror. "They think we are defenseless," Sarah said, her mind racing. "But we are not. We have technology too. We can use it to our advantage." Mark looked at her, eyes wide with hope. "What do you have in mind?" "We need to gather as much information as possible," Sarah replied. "We can analyze their technology and find a way to fight back. But first, we must stay hidden. If they find us, we won't stand a chance." As the Drakthar began their invasion, Sarah and her team worked quickly. They accessed the building's security feeds, monitoring the movements of the aliens. The Drakthar were methodical, breaking into government buildings and taking control of key communication systems. Their arrogance was clear. They believed Earth was easy prey. Hours passed, and the situation grew worse. The Drakthar's forces spread across the globe, causing chaos and destruction. Major cities fell into darkness as the aliens disabled power grids and communication lines. Sarah's heart raced as she watched the destruction unfold. "We need to do something," she urged her team. "We can't just sit here and wait for them to take over." "What can we do?" Mark asked, his voice filled with doubt. Sarah took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. "We can't give up hope. We'll gather intelligence and look for weaknesses. If we can find even one small flaw in their technology, it could make a difference." Determined, Sarah led her team to analyze the data they had collected. They spent hours reviewing videos and images of the Drakthar ships and their weapons. Slowly, they began to identify patterns in their movements. And Sarah noticed something important. "Look at this," she exclaimed, pointing to a screen. "There's a pattern in their power usage. It seems like they need to recharge after every attack. If we can find a way to disrupt that, we might have a chance." Mark leaned in, his excitement growing. "If we can time our attack right, We could hit them when they are vulnerable. The team worked tirelessly, using their knowledge of technology and science to develop a plan. The fear of the invasion pushed them forward, and they transformed their fear into determination. As they continued their assault on Earth, a small group of humans began to prepare for resistance. Outside, the skies were still filled with ships, casting shadows over the land. But within the walls of the research center, hope flickered. They might be facing a formidable enemy, but Sarah knew one thing: humanity was not defenseless. As they gathered their resources, Sarah felt a surge of courage. The fight for Earth had just begun, and together, they would show that humans were far more than they appeared. With that thought in mind, Sarah rallied her team, ready to take the first step towards reclaiming their planet. They may have come expecting an easy victory, but they would soon learn that underestimating humanity was their greatest. The resistance forms. As the sun rose the next day, the world outside was a stark contrast to the chaos that had unfolded. The streets lay empty, filled with debris and the remnants of panic. The once bustling cities now echoed with silence, broken only by the distant sounds of alien machinery. They had established control, but inside the research center, a spark of rebellion was igniting. Sarah and her team worked day and night, fueled by adrenaline and determination. They gathered data, compiled reports, and strategized ways to undermine the technological superiority. Each passing hour brought them closer to formulating a plan, and their resolve grew stronger. "We need more information," Mark said, tapping nervously on his keyboard. "We can't fight back until we understand how their technology works." "I agree," Sarah replied, her eyes narrowing in thought. "Let's reach out to other scientists, researchers, and anyone who might have insights into their technology. We need to create a network of resistance." They began contacting universities, labs, and even government facilities, sharing their findings and seeking help. Slowly, news of their efforts spread, and a few brave souls responded. Scientists, engineers, and former military personnel began to unite, each contributing their skills and knowledge to the growing resistance. One evening, as they huddled around a table filled with computer screens and blueprints, Sarah looked around at her team. "We are not alone in this fight. We have people who believe in what we are doing, and together, we can make a difference." The atmosphere buzzed with excitement as they reviewed their collective findings. A former engineer named Jake had insights into the power sources, while another scientist, Dr. Emily Chen, specialized in electronic warfare. Each new piece of information felt like a lifeline, a thread of hope woven into their plan. "I've analyzed the power patterns," Jake said, leaning over the table. "If we disrupt their power supply when they're recharging, we could potentially take down their defenses." Sarah nodded, inspired. "Exactly. If we time our attacks right, we can disable their ships and buy ourselves some time. But we need to act fast. The longer we wait, the more control they gain." With a plan forming, they divided into teams to execute different tasks. Some focused on gathering intelligence, while others worked on building makeshift weapons using whatever they could find. They were fueled by the idea of reclaiming their world, and each person felt the weight of their responsibility. As days turned into a week, the resistance grew. They met in secret locations, away from the prying eyes of the. Sarah felt a sense of camaraderie develop among the members. They shared their fears, dreams, and determination to protect Earth. Each meeting filled her with hope. However, the world outside was not getting any better. Reports came in of increased attacks, with the searching for anyone who dared to oppose them. News outlets broadcasted the alien invaders' threats, but the resistance remained steadfast, hidden from the eyes of the enemy. One night, as they gathered in a dimly lit basement, a sense of urgency filled the room. Sarah stood at the front, addressing her comrades. "The Drakthar are ruthless. They're not just attacking cities, they're hunting down anyone who poses a threat. We need to make our move before they crush our spirit completely." "Are we ready?" Mark asked, uncertainty lacing his voice. What if we fail? Failure is not an option, Sarah replied, her voice steady. We fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone on this planet. If we show them we won't back down, they will think twice before underestimating us. With determination, they reviewed their strategy again. Their first target was a power station, crucial for sustaining their operations. Disrupting it would send a strong message and potentially weaken their forces. As they prepared for the mission, Sarah felt a surge of hope. Each person was ready to fight for their home. They were no longer just scientists and engineers. They had become warriors united against a common enemy. The fear that once gripped them transformed into a fierce determination. On the day of the operation, the group gathered, hearts pounding with anticipation. They donned makeshift gear and carried their improvised weapons, feeling the weight of their responsibility. Remember, we're not alone in this fight, Sarah reminded them. We are humanity's hope. Together, we can take back our planet. With that, they set out under the cover of darkness, slipping through the city streets, moving quietly and strategically. Each step brought them closer to the heart of the power source, and every breath felt like a step toward freedom. As they approached the power station, Sarah glanced at her team. Determination flickered in their eyes. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would show the true spirit of humanity, resilient, strong, and unyielding in the face of adversity. Little did they know, the humans they deemed defenseless were rising to protect their home. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and the resistance was prepared to fight for the first strike. The night was still, the air heavy with tension as Sarah and her team approached the power station. They moved like shadows, relying on the cover of darkness to shield them from the watchful eyes of the Drakthar. Each member of the resistance felt a mixture of fear and determination, knowing that this mission could change the fate of their world. The power station loomed ahead, a vast structure filled with humming machinery and pulsating lights. Sarah's heart raced as she led her team toward the entrance. They had gathered as much intelligence as they could, but they knew that they were unpredictable. Every step forward felt like a leap into the unknown. Stay quiet and stick to the plan, Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible over the distant sounds of the alien operations. She felt the weight of leadership resting on her shoulders. They were counting on her to guide them through this mission. As they reached the entrance, Jake and Emily began to disable the security systems. Their fingers danced over the screens, and the tension in the air thickened. I've got access to their mainframe, Jake whispered. Just a few more seconds. The sound of footsteps echoed nearby, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Hurry, she urged. They had to get inside before they were discovered. With a final click, the door slid open, revealing a dimly lit hallway filled with the hum of machinery. Sarah gestured for the team to move inside, and they slipped into the shadows. The interior was labyrinthine, filled with twists and turns that could easily confuse anyone unfamiliar with the layout. Remember, our goal is to reach the control room, Sarah reminded her team. That's where we can disrupt their power supply. We need to be in and out quickly. As they navigated the corridors, they stumbled upon several alien guards patrolling the area. Sarah motioned for the team to hide behind a large piece of equipment. They held their breath, hearts racing as they passed by, unaware of the humans lurking just a few feet away. Let's take them out quietly, Sarah whispered, her voice steady. The team nodded in agreement, and they moved into action. With a combination of stealth and makeshift weapons, they quickly subdued the guards, ensuring that no alarms were triggered. Good job, everyone, Sarah praised as they dragged the bodies into the shadows. Now, let's keep moving. They continued down the corridor, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Every step felt monumental. Each corner they turned bringing them closer to their goal. They reached a heavy door marked Control Room and paused, exchanging glances filled with a mix of fear and anticipation. Okay, this is it, Sarah said, her voice a whisper. Emily, can you override the lock? Emily nodded, her hands steady as she approached the control panel. With a few swift movements, the doors slid open, revealing a room filled with blinking lights and glowing screens. The hum of machinery was louder here, a testament to the power that flowed through the station. Sarah entered the room first, scanning for any immediate threats. "Clear," she called back, and the rest of the team followed. They quickly spread out, assessing the consoles and trying to find the main power controls. "Here it is," Jake exclaimed, pointing at a large screen displaying the power flow of the entire station. "If we can overload this system, we can knock out their defenses." "Let's do it," Sarah urged, feeling a surge of confidence. "Emily, can you reroute the energy flow?" Emily got to work, fingers flying over the keys. "I'll need a minute. We're going to have to trigger a feedback loop. It'll create a surge and cause a massive overload." "Make it fast," Sarah said, glancing at the door. They had to be quick. They knew the Drakthar would soon realize something was wrong. As Emily worked, the tension in the room escalated. Sarah and the others kept watch, ears straining for any sounds of approaching guards. Each tick of the clock felt like an eternity. Finally, Emily looked up, her face pale but determined. "I'm ready. On my mark, we hit the override button. And then we get out of here." "Got it," Sarah replied. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. They pressed the button together, and the machinery around them erupted into a flurry of alarms and flashing lights. The room shook as the power surged and began to overload. "Let's move," Sarah shouted, and they sprinted toward the exit as the lights flickered ominously. They could hear the frantic shouts of Drakthar soldiers echoing in the corridors, urgency flooding their movements. The team rushed back through the halls, adrenaline pushing them forward. They rounded a corner, only to be met with a squad of Drakthar guards, weapons drawn and ready. "Get down," Mark yelled, and they dove behind a stack of equipment just in time as a hail of energy blasts zipped overhead. "Emily, can you create a diversion?" Sarah shouted over the chaos. "I'll try," Emily replied, frantically looking for something to help them. She spotted a control panel nearby and began to tap away at it. With a flick of a switch, a series of explosions erupted in another part of the station, creating a distraction. The guards turned, momentarily confused, giving Sarah and her team the opening they needed. "Now," Sarah yelled, and they surged forward, taking advantage of the chaos. They dodged energy blasts, moving with urgency as they fought their way back toward the exit. As they burst through the main doors, a deafening explosion shook the ground behind them. The power station erupted in a fiery blaze, lights flickering and debris scattering everywhere. They stumbled outside, panting and covered in dust. They paused for a moment, staring at the destruction they had caused. The sight was both exhilarating and terrifying. The Drakthar had underestimated them, and they had struck a significant blow against their oppressors. "We did it," Mark exclaimed, his face lit with excitement. Sarah nodded, still processing the rush of adrenaline. "This is just the beginning. We've sent them a message, and now we need to build on this momentum." As they regrouped, determination surged through the team. They were no longer just a group of scientists and engineers. They were warriors, ready to fight for their home. Together, they would rise against the darkness, showing the Drakthar that humanity was far from defenseless. The fight for Earth had truly begun, and they would not back down. The response. The morning sun shone brightly over the remnants of the power station. Smoke still curled into the sky, a testament to the destruction that Sarah and her team had unleashed upon their alien captors. As they regrouped, a mix of relief and anxiety filled the air. They had achieved a significant victory, but the war was far from over. The counterattack. As dawn broke over the horizon, a soft light spilled into the safe house, casting gentle shadows on the faces of the weary resistance fighters. After hours of strategizing and planning, sleep had come hard, but their resolve had never been stronger. The team gathered around a makeshift table, where maps and data from various resistance groups lay spread out before them. "All right, everyone," Sarah began, her voice steady and commanding. "Today, we execute our counterattack. We've gathered intel from multiple resistance cells, and we need to hit the Drakthar where it hurts the most." Emily adjusted her glasses and pointed to a spot on the map. "Our first target is their supply depot here. If we can take it down, we'll disrupt their operations and weaken their forces." Jake leaned in closer, eyes focused. "What about their patrol routes? We need to ambush them while they're vulnerable. If we hit them hard and fast, they won't know what hit them." Mark nodded. "I can rig up some explosives to create diversions. It'll draw their attention away from our main objective, making it easier for us to strike." As the team discussed tactics, a sense of urgency filled the room. Time was of the essence. The Drakthar were already on high alert after the attack on the power station, and they wouldn't expect a coordinated counterstrike so soon. "Let's divide into two groups," Sarah proposed. "Emily and Mark, you'll handle the supply depot. Jake and I will take care of the patrols. We'll use the element of surprise to our advantage." With the plan in place, the team quickly gathered their gear, weapons, and supplies. Each member felt the weight of responsibility, but they also felt a flicker of hope. They were no longer hiding in fear. They were striking back. As they stepped out of the safe house and into the crisp morning air, the forest was alive with sounds of nature. Birds chirped overhead, a stark contrast to the violence they were about to unleash. But today, they were warriors, ready to reclaim their home. The journey to the supply depot was tense. The team moved stealthily, navigating through the trees, staying low and quiet. Each rustle of leaves made their hearts race, but they pushed on, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Upon reaching the depot, Emily and Mark found a hidden vantage point. They watched as Drakthar soldiers patrolled the area, unaware of the impending danger. The supply depot was heavily guarded, but there were vulnerabilities they could exploit. Mark set the explosives near the entrance. Emily whispered, her eyes scanning the area for any additional threats. "Once they're in position, we'll blow it. That should create enough chaos for us to slip in and sabotage their supplies." "Got it," Mark replied, moving with precision as he carefully planted the explosives. Meanwhile, Sarah and Jake had taken their positions along the patrol route. They crouched behind thick trees, their breaths shallow as they waited for the right moment to strike. As the distant sounds of alien voices grew closer, Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. "Get ready," she whispered to Jake, gripping her weapon tightly. Just as the first patrol came into view, she felt a rush of adrenaline. "Now," she shouted, bursting from her hiding spot and firing at the Drakthar soldiers. The suddenness of the attack took the aliens by surprise. Jake followed suit, his shots precise and calculated. The Drakthar soldiers faltered, trying to regroup, but the element of surprise was on the human side. Back at the supply depot, Emily pressed the detonator with a shaky finger. The explosion rocked the ground, sending debris flying and smoke billowing into the sky. The chaos that ensued drew the attention of the Drakthar soldiers, leaving them vulnerable and confused. "Let's move," Emily shouted, rushing towards the depot with Mark right behind her. They darted through the thick smoke, adrenaline pushing them forward. Inside the depot, the shelves were filled with crates of supplies, food, weapons, and ammunition. Emily's eyes widened at the sight. "We need to destroy everything we can," she said, determination fueling her words. Mark nodded, setting more explosives around the room. "We won't let them have these resources." Meanwhile, outside, Sarah and Jake continued their assault on the patrols, taking down soldiers one by one. Each victory fueled their confidence. They were making a stand, showing the Drakthar that humanity was not to be underestimated. Suddenly, Sarah spotted a larger Drakthar figure approaching, a commander, likely responsible for coordinating the patrols. "Jake, take the shot," she ordered. Jake took aim, heart racing. "I've got it," he said, steadying his breath. With a loud crack he fired, and the commander collapsed to the ground. The remaining soldiers hesitated, uncertainty flashing in their eyes. The tide of battle was turning. Inside the supply depot, the countdown timer on the explosives ticked down. Emily and Mark had just finished setting the last charges when they heard the distant sound of gunfire outside. "It's time to go," Emily urged, grabbing Mark's arm. "We've done enough damage here." They raced back towards the exit, just as the first explosion shook the building, sending them tumbling forward. The structure began to collapse, smoke filling the air. "Run," Mark shouted, pulling Emily along as they navigated through the chaos. As they emerged from the depot, the sight was both terrifying and exhilarating. The explosion had destroyed the supply depot, leaving a smoldering wreck in its place. Soldiers were in disarray, scrambling to regroup and assess the damage. Just then, she spotted them emerging from the trees, looking fierce and triumphant. "Did you see that?" Sarah shouted, a grin spreading across her face. "We're making them pay." With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the four of them sprinted into the trees, their hearts pounding with the thrill of victory. They had struck a blow against and as they disappeared into the forest, they could already feel the momentum shifting in their favor. As they reached the safe house, a wave of exhilaration washed over them. They had achieved something monumental, and it was just the beginning. Together, they had shown the aliens the true strength of humanity. "Today we fought back," Sarah said, her voice filled with determination. "And we will keep fighting until we take our planet back." With newfound hope igniting their spirits, the team began to prepare for their next move, ready to take the fight to the once. The rallying call. As the sun set over the horizon, casting an orange hue across the sky, the small resistance group gathered once again in the safe house. The atmosphere was electric with a sense of purpose and determination. The recent success of their counterattack had not only boosted their spirits, but had also attracted the attention of other human survivors who had been hiding in the shadows. Sarah stood at the head of the table, her eyes filled with resolve. "Our victory today was significant, but it's only the beginning. We need to build on this momentum and unite more survivors under our cause." Emily nodded, her face lighting up. "We've shown that we can strike back and disrupt their operations. Imagine if we had more fighters. We could take on the in larger numbers." Mark, who had been studying a map spread out before them, spoke up. "I've been in contact with a few resistance groups in neighboring regions. They're eager to join us, but they need to see that we're serious about this fight." Jake crossed his arms, a look of concern on his face. "What if we bring them here? They could find out our location and attack us when we're vulnerable." "Good point," Sarah replied. "But if we rally enough people, we can launch a coordinated attack and push them back. We need to make a bold move to prove we're not afraid of them." Emily's eyes sparkled with excitement. "What if we organize a rally? We could invite all the nearby resistance groups and show them our strength. We can demonstrate what we achieved today." "I like that idea," Mark said, nodding. "A rally would not only boost morale but also allow us to strategize together. If we show unity, it will inspire others to join our cause." With the plan in place, the group quickly began to organize the rally. They used every resource they could find to spread the word, sending out messages, using makeshift signs, and reaching out to neighboring groups. The excitement grew as more survivors heard about their plans. Days passed, and soon the day of the rally arrived. People from different backgrounds and areas gathered at a designated meeting point deep in the forest, hidden from the Draktar's watchful eyes. They brought their stories, their fears, and their hopes for a better future. As the crowd assembled, Sarah stood before them, her heart pounding with anticipation. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She stepped up onto a makeshift platform, made from a few planks of wood and a sturdy crate. "Thank you all for coming today," she shouted, her voice ringing out over the crowd. We stand here not just as individuals, but as a united force against our common enemy, the Drakthar. Together, we can reclaim our planet and ensure a future for humanity." Cheers erupted from the crowd, and Sarah felt a rush of energy flow through her. She had ignited something within these people, a spark of hope. "Today, we have proven that we can fight back," she continued, gesturing toward the four of them. "Our recent victory against the supply depot is a testament to our strength and resilience. But we must not stop here. We need to work together, share our knowledge, and combine our resources." As she spoke, Emily took a step forward. "Each one of us has a story to tell, and we all have unique skills to bring to this fight. Whether you're a fighter, a medic, a strategist, or a thinker, every contribution matters. Together, we are stronger." The crowd responded with a chorus of agreement. Sarah could see the fire in their eyes. They were ready to fight for their survival. Jake stood up next, his tone earnest. "We need to be smart about our next steps. We've done well in disrupting their supply lines, but now we must plan for a larger assault. We need to take out their command center and weaken their leadership." Mark chimed in. "I've gathered information from scouts who have been observing the Drakthar's movements. Their command center is located on the outskirts of the city, heavily guarded but vulnerable during shift changes. If we can time our attack correctly, we can hit them hard and fast." The crowd murmured with excitement as they absorbed the information. The idea of taking the fight to the Drakthar's doorstep filled them with courage. Sarah continued, her voice unwavering. "Let's not forget why we're here. We're fighting for our loved ones, for our homes, and for the future of humanity. Together, we will make them pay for every life they've taken and every home they've destroyed." The rallying cry echoed through the forest, and a surge of determination swept over the crowd. They were no longer hiding in fear. They were standing together, ready to fight back. As the day went on, the energy in the camp intensified. Survivors shared their stories, exchanged ideas, and forged new alliances. They were united by a common purpose, and the spirit of resilience flowed through each person present. As night fell, a fire was lit in the center of the gathering. They all sat together, sharing rations, laughter, and dreams of what the future could hold. In that moment, they weren't just survivors. They were a family bound together by the hope of reclaiming their planet. But as the stars twinkled overhead, Sarah knew that their greatest challenge was still ahead. They would need to strategize carefully and prepare for the assault on the command center. They would not back down easily, but neither would they. With a renewed sense of purpose, the group began to formulate their battle plan, united in their resolve to reclaim their home from the clutches of the invaders. Tomorrow would mark the beginning of a new chapter in their fight for survival. The final stand. The day of reckoning had arrived. The small resistance group had spent the past few days preparing for their assault on the Drakthar command center. Everyone was tense but determined. As the first rays of dawn broke through the trees, they gathered for one last briefing. Sarah stood at the forefront, her heart racing. "Today is our chance to show the Drakthar that we are not their prey. We will strike fast and hit hard. Remember, we are fighting for our homes, our families, and our future." The group, now a united force of several dozen survivors, nodded in agreement. They had each contributed in their way, from gathering intelligence to crafting makeshift weapons. Their confidence had grown with every passing day, and today they would put that confidence to the test. Mark shared the final details of their plan. "The Drakthar's command center is guarded by a perimeter of sentries. We'll split into two teams. Team A will create a diversion at the east entrance, while Team B approaches from the south. Once we create enough chaos, we'll storm the command center together. Our goal is to capture their leader and disrupt their command structure." As the group made their way to the command center, they moved with a sense of purpose. The trees parted to reveal a clearing, and there it was, the Drakthar command center, a massive structure built with cold, metallic walls that seemed to hum with an unsettling energy. The guards patrolled the perimeter, their alien forms silhouetted against the morning light. Positions, Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of rustling leaves. The group spread out, ready to take action. On my mark, she continued, her heart pounding. She glanced at her team, seeing the determination in their eyes. This was it. They were ready. With that, Team A burst into action. They created a loud distraction, setting off smoke bombs and making noise to draw the guards' attention. Chaos erupted as the Drakthar sentries rushed toward the source of the disturbance. Now, Sarah yelled, signaling Team B to move. They dashed toward the command center, hearts racing as they navigated through the chaos. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Rows of screens displayed tactical information and communication between the Drakthar forces. Sarah could see the alien leader sitting at a central console, barking orders into a communicator. She felt a surge of adrenaline as they made their way toward him. Stay together, she urged her team. They moved with purpose, avoiding detection as they approached the leader, who was oblivious to the imminent threat. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared, piercing the silence. The Drakthar had noticed the breach. The group sprang into action, drawing their weapons as they rushed toward the alien leader. "Stop," he shouted, turning to face them, a mixture of surprise and anger on his face. "You think you can challenge us here?" Sarah stepped forward, determination etched on her face. "We're not here to negotiate. We're here to end this." In the ensuing chaos, a fierce battle broke out within the command center. The small resistance group fought valiantly against the Drakthar guards who flooded the area. The odds were stacked against them, but they fought with everything they had, fueled by the belief that they were fighting for their home. With every alien they took down, the team felt their resolve strengthening. They had trained for this moment, and they were not about to back down. Meanwhile, Emily moved toward the alien leader, her heart racing. She knew that capturing him was crucial to their success. As she approached, he lunged at her, but she was quicker. With a swift movement, she tackled him to the ground, pinning him down. "Get off me," he snarled, but Emily was fueled by her anger and determination. "You've terrorized us for long enough." As the battle raged on, Sarah caught sight of the control panel. "We need to shut down their communications," she shouted to her team. Mark and Jake quickly joined her, working together to disable the system. They pulled wires and flipped switches, hoping to disrupt the Drakthar's ability to call for reinforcements. The alien leader, still struggling beneath Emily, realized what was happening. "You fools, you will regret this." But Sarah had no intention of letting fear stop her. "We're the ones who will decide how this ends." Finally, with a loud crackle, the screens went dark, and the alarm stopped. The resistance group had succeeded in disabling the command center's communication systems. But their fight wasn't over yet. With their leader captured and the communications down, the Drakthar guards began to retreat, realizing the tides were turning against them. Seeing their ranks dwindling, the remaining Drakthar soldiers began to flee, leaving their fallen comrades behind. "Let them run," Jake shouted, catching his breath. "We've won this battle." As the dust began to settle, Sarah looked around at her team. They had done it. They had taken the fight to the Drakthar and emerged victorious. But as they took a moment to catch their breath, they knew the war was far from over. The fight for humanity's survival had only just begun. With the alien leader in their grasp, they now had the chance to negotiate a new future for Earth. They would gather their allies and prepare for the next phase of the resistance. Together, they would reclaim their home and forge a path toward peace. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow across the battlefield, Sarah felt a sense of hope swell within her. They had faced the darkness, and together they had triumphed. Now, united by their struggles, they were ready to continue the fight for humanity's future.